All right, so let's get started. So I'm just going to go over this real quick. If we go to our webpage events, here's all the upcoming training events we have. I'm going to add a registration here to this page. So you'll be able to sign up from here as well. I know that's been a big complaint is that you haven't been able to sign up here before. And then we reuse all this information for all of our training videos. So today we're going to go over setting up NetDocs on a Mac and a PC. I'll start with the Mac portion first because it's fairly straightforward. And I'm remoted into my Mac, which is sitting right next to me. So we're on my Mac right now. There's really two components. And for a lot of you listening or watching, you might be like, we're an all Windows shop. Okay. Everyone uses Windows, but you probably have someone that has a Mac at home. And so you get drawn into this, even if, I have some firms that are all Macs. I have some firms that are all Windows, but they usually have one of the other PCs at home and they want to know how to do this. There's on the Mac, the software is different. We're going to install ND-Click. And let me just shrink this down off my Mac and just go over this here. This direct downloads from NetDocs, which is a page that I follow, has all of the NetDocs software on this. So what we're referring to is ND-Click for Mac. And we will also be looking at ND-Sync for Mac. These are the two programs that we will download and then install. So let's go over ND-Click first. If you're using NetDocs on a Mac, you need to have ND-Click. So I've installed it. I've unzipped it. Now I'm going to open this up. And then I'm just going to run this. The unsigned version is if you have an older version of the Mac OS. This is the current version. We're just going to come over here. And then it's fairly straightforward, right? I've got my Mac right next to me. So I'm just continue, agree, continue, install. You're going to have to put in your password here. Let's see if it takes my thumb. I got to type in my password. This is the password to get into your Mac, okay? And then install software. ND-Click. So what ND-Click does is when you click on something on a web page, it comes over and it goes in and installs it, allows you to open up documents and put them back and forth. Where is ND-Click? Never had. Let's hit cancel here. All right. And that just might, that weird thing might be because I've had this on here before. So we'll put in our password again. ND-Click has been installed. Now this screen will come up. And because I've installed ND-Click on this Mac before, it's automatically going in for me to log in via my Office 365 account. Okay. Most firms in the past 2 years we've set up, we have everyone using Office 365. And I'll go over that in a second, but it automatically came up. So I'm using single sign-on here. And I'm actually not going to go through the whole process, but we're going to come in here, then we would put in our password, and you would be good to go. Yes, we'll just hit OK here, move to trash. So ND-Click has been installed, and if you can see right here, this is ND-Click. You don't do anything with ND-Click once you've logged in. There's really nothing to do here. When you open up Safari or Google Chrome on your Mac and you click on a document, that document checks out via ND-Click and it checks back in via ND-Click. But a lot of people will come over here and be like, it doesn't open up NetDocs. It's not supposed to open up NetDocs. It's just a program you need for documents to check back in and out. Now, the other program I end up installing on a Mac is ND-Sync. Not NSYNC, ND-Sync, but only if the law firm has purchased ND-Sync. So this is an add-on product, okay? I'll go over how to see if you have it in a second. But in this example, we'll pretend the firm does have ND-Sync. It's basically Dropbox for NetDocs. It allows you to select a matter, synchronize the whole thing down. So got a little click happy there. Let's click on ND Sync. All right. This happens all the time, and I have to talk people through this. I'm glad this happened here. So we clicked on it. It won't install. If I come up to go, nope, let me do this. Let's get around this. Right click. So 2 fingers down on my Mac touch bar, or right click on the Mac, and then we're going to go open with installer. Then we get the option to open it. This is something I downloaded directly from NetDocs, but you had to do that right click, open with installer, and now we're able to install. Continue, agree, install. Type in the password here. Install software. All right, and then we just get taken up to a login screen. Now, this is what I was talking about. So to use single sign-on, I'm going to need to come down to use organizations login, type in my email address, and then the Microsoft 365 single sign-on will take over. Those are the 2 programs I would install on my Mac. Let's jump back in on my computer. I'm going to jump over into my NetDocs now. And I want you to see, yeah, I know that because I don't know. So if I come over to the admin console and click on ND Sync, allow ND Sync is checked off. If you haven't purchased ND Sync, it won't allow you. It'll be do not allow ND Sync. It'll be in red. So that's to let you know if you have it. If you have Mac users and you've purchased ND Sync, install ND Sync. If you haven't, just use ND Click. Those are the only 2 pieces of software to install. All right, and that's it. Pretty simple. Let's go over setting up NetDocs now on a Windows computer. And this has changed recently. So if we come over to this NetDocs downloads page, you want to install ND Office 3.0. 3.2, which came out February 15th, and you're going to want to install ND Mail. Okay, these are the 2 programs that you're going to want to install, ND Office and ND Mail. We no longer need ND Click for a Windows computer. It's just ND Office and ND Mail. What we've done is we have created an install program. We're going to use that, but I want to go over this because for me, it's easy because I'm not that smart. So if I have to set this up for my computer or someone else's computer at my office, I just remote in and do it. We have, we're a 5-person company, so it's not that big of a deal. If you have 50 users and you need to install this, you want to push that out. You can push this out via MSIs or EXEs, but EXEs are so much easier. Because the MSIs will not install the pre-required Windows software. So if you're running the EXEs, and that's how I'm going to do it in this demo today, but if you install the MSIs, you need to push out these 2 pieces of software first, and then you can install the programs. So you'll download these 2 zip files, and then you're going to run the MSIs. So the other thing about the MSIs is for like ND Mail, are you running Outlook, the 32-bit version, or the 64? Almost everyone is running the 64-bit version. So you have to install folder mapping separately and then ND Mail. EXEs just install everything for you, so they're so much easier. The other thing I'll bring up, and I hope you can use the EXEs, is we can do a silent install. So in this example, we've downloaded the 2 EXEs to this location on our server, and we've done this quiet install, which will push out ND Office and ND Mail for you. So that's very straightforward. In this document here, I got all sorts of notes about doing this. It goes kind of through everything. So let's go over. I've downloaded ND Mail setup.exe and ND Office setup.exe. We always install ND Office first. Let me just shrink this down. So I'm going to click here. Again, because we're doing the exe, we're just going to click and follow, and the exe is going to look at everything and it's going to tell us. Let me just see here. Okay, there we go. So we're going to agree, hit install, hit yes, and then we're going to go through the process. It's installing all the prerequisite software. It's determining this. Oh, this is a good error message to have. And why we don't have users do this all the time, because I have Adobe opened. It's not letting me install because we're integrating with Adobe. So let's close Adobe. And let's see here. The best thing to do is download these two programs, restart your computer, and then you're going to run the programs. But you don't want to have anything open. You don't want to have Word, Excel, Outlook, or any of those programs opened. All right. So we just got to sit here and watch it install. It's installing really two programs. It's determining what version of Adobe you have on your computer. If you have Adobe, and it's installing ND Adobe, either the 32 or 64-bit, and then it's installing ND Office, which is the plugin to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook. And this is the order we want to install these programs. So we're installing ND Office first. See all these little flashes, things are happening. Kind of run out of things to say here. So we'll just, and the other thing it's installing is if I have Google Chrome, it is also installing a plugin in Google Chrome. We'll go over all that when it's done. All right, we've got ND Office set up. Let's click on ND Mail now. We want to do it in this order. We'll hit agree, and then we'll hit install as well. Options allow me to remove folder mapping if I didn't want it, but I always want folder mapping. So I'm going to install it in here again, because we're running the exe, so it installs everything for you. If you're running the MSI, you'd have to run the ND Mail, then you would have to run the folder mapping. But the EXEs are so much better. Hopefully you can push them out. But yes, here. And then ND Mail is being installed. This is the predictive coding email plugin. So when someone's reading an email, it predicts where the email should go. And it's pretty accurate, pretty amazing tool. I mean, these things are fairly fast. All right. Now, great. We have NetDocs installed, but there is something else we have to do, and that's to run the batch file. I'm going to open up this program right here. Program allows me to do two things, but I'm going to show this to you. I'm just going to click on next because you could run this on a local computer. Okay. This is a program our company built to basically set all the NetDocs settings. I rarely ever send you this program, although I will, and we're doing a major update to it, right? We're always doing a major update to it. But for example, it lets me choose, are you using the Canadian data center or the US data center? If I'm installing NetDocs on one computer, I'm using this program. If I'm installing it on multiple computers, I'm going to generate the batch file, which was one of the options. We'll go back over that again. But so big thing here, are you in Canada? Are you in the UK, Germany, Australia, US government? That's the option. Do you log into NetDocs your 365 account? We're removing that. No longer important to have. Let users know about new versions of NetDocs software. For me, I'm going to leave yes, but if I was installing this for one of my users, that would 100% be no. I don't want people to know about new versions of NetDocs. I feel like we do a good job of telling you when it's ready, they're ready to update, and then you do that as a firm policy. I'll leave it at yes, but realize that should be no almost all the time. Is the firm using document stamping? So in a Word document, are you stamping the NetDocs ID? We're using footer every page. You could also say no stamping. We'll go over here. Let users synchronize favorite items to their computer. No one really uses it. It's a newer feature of NetDocs. We built it in there. Do you want NetDocs to prompt you to save emails? I do. So I'll change this to yes. Do you want to view the NetDocs panel with Outlook? There's a little bottom left-hand corner view of NetDocs in Outlook, which I do love. Do you want to re-enable the ND Office functions? Always no. We're going to remove that anyway, so it won't be there. Do you want NetDocs to automatically pop when hitting save in Microsoft Office? Yes. Now, if I was installing NetDocs before the go live date, so say we're going live with NetDocs in 2 weeks, I'm going to make this no, because people are using Word. I don't want NetDocs to come up if they're not really using it. So if you're installing this the weekend before we go live, we'll choose yes. Do you want NetDocs to automatically pop when hitting save in Adobe? I'm going to choose yes. Do you want to remove the ability to save locally on the workstations? I mean, I want to choose yes here. It means forces everything into NetDocs, but no one does that. So we'll leave it at no. And now I'm going to click modify registry values. And this sets all of my registry settings. There are a lot of settings in here that weren't a question. Like in the registry settings, I prevent Office from disabling any NetDocs product out there. Now, the good way to check this is we set this to footer of each page except first. So let me just launch ND Office. The easiest way to do that is just to open up Word, Excel, PowerPoint. But okay, ND Office is launching. This is what ND Office is right here. Again, just like when we went over the Mac portion of this, there isn't really a lot you're doing with ND Office. So it's not something people really need to click on. But let's come over to settings, the gear here, settings, and I'm going to come over to check to make sure my registry settings were correct. First option, if it says 14 here and 5, I know my settings got checked. Check for updates is grayed out, preventing me from knowing about new software. Footer every page except first. Footer every page except first. I know these things got properly run because I see those settings. So once you push this out via a batch file, we're going to go over that in a second. This is what you want to come back here and do and make sure that all of the settings are correct. Let's go back to this tool again. So like I said, I don't normally give you this tool. I give you the batch file it produces. So I'm going to run this again and notice generate batch is an option. So when I click on this, I get the same questions again, but what I'm doing at the end is generating a batch file. So let's click browse here. I'll just choose the desktop, select file here, and I'm going to choose generate batch. And this is what I'm giving you, and it's this batch file, okay? So this is all of the settings. You see that there's a lot of them in here, like stuff that's disabling Word, just stopping Word from disabling NetDocs and stuff like that. So that's a copy of the current user and local machine settings. If you're going around to each computer, maybe you've and you're logging in as that user, then you can just run this batch file on every computer, but you have to be logged into that user. If you have 80 workstations, most likely what you're doing is separating these. So we'll hit generate again, and I'm separating these. Okay, current user, and then this one right here is the local machine. Local machine, you can kind of push out to each computer. You could run it as an admin and it would work. The thing with the current user values, and I see people just mess this up all the time, is you cannot log into that person's machine as the admin and then run this. it's hitting current user. So the reason I give you the ability to separate these into two files is this is what I'd put in the login script. So when the person logs in, all these settings get set. And then the local machine, those are much more easier to deploy. This all depends on what sort of remote deployment software you have, or you just basically using group policy, or you're using just a Windows login script. I mean, that is really up to you. That's really out of my wheelhouse, but that's why we separated these two files. Let me open up the scripted install again. So this is a PDF that we send to everyone that kind of just goes over how to do this. And again, I go over the batch file and why we've separated it into two separate things. Again, required software, you only need to install the required software if you're running the MSIs. I really hope you can run the EXEs, because then you don't have to worry about this, because you have to install these separately. But again, it will go over here. So we need, okay, so if you don't have .NET 4.8, you have to reboot the machine. So maybe install this. If you're doing the MSIs, install .NET 4.8 way before we go live, just so we don't have to deal with this, because it'll look like it's running and it really won't. So the ND Mail and ND Office MSIs will run without any warning, but then they'll just fail out. Okay, ND Office has to be installed before ND Mail. ND Office and ND Mail integrate with Microsoft Office. So when we're talking about 32-bit or 64-bit, it never is something about the operating system. It's always a version of what software you're running. Folder mapping has two versions. 64-bit is for the 64-bit version of Office. 86 is for the 32-bit version of Office. Other thing just to notice here, if I go and open up Google Chrome, all right, and we come over to our extensions, we should have a NetDocs Google Chrome extension that gets installed. I am not seeing it here, and the only reason is because I removed it. So let's just come over here. I don't see it. Search extensions. Anyone can add this. This is the NetDocs Chrome extension. Probably don't have to type in Chrome there. Let's just go to, we'll just do it this way. NetDocs, Google Chrome. This should automatically get installed. It's not getting installed because I removed it. Here it is. Here. And I'm just going to add to Chrome. And then we'll click on Add Extension. And that gets added right there. Now, the thing that I always want to do is hit the thumbtack, so I always see it there. You can also install that in Edge. There's a little extra step to do that, and I think I have an article on my webpage about doing it. But that's how we install NetDocs. Okay, on a Mac, you got to jump on that Mac and just install it. Okay, you got to run ND-Click and maybe ND-Sync, and then that's it. On a Windows computer, you're installing ND Office and ND Mail. Those integrate with all your Office products and Adobes and stuff like that. The other thing, and let me just come up to my webpage, and we're going to talk about setting up NetDocs on a Windows machine. Actually, let me just come over to common issues here. Workstation installation. So there's my guide to setting up NetDocs on a Windows computer, setting up Windows on a Mac, but other third-party integrations on the desktop. So for you to be aware of, if you have Workshare, if you have Latera, if you have Kofax, there's some extra settings that you need to do on those machines. They're covered in these articles right here. If you want NetDocs to work in Firefox, there's some settings here. And if you want to add the Chrome extension to Microsoft Edge, which is this thing right here, what this does is it allows you to upload documents from NetDocs to web pages. Then you want to click here. All right. Do we have any questions at all? Feel free to use the Q&A in Zoom to ask anything about installing NetDocs on a Mac or a Windows computer. While while we're waiting, I'll just be very, I don't know, kind of frank about this, is that NetDocs works completely different on a Mac than it does on a Windows computer. And because they're two different operating systems. And so you just, if someone's been trained to use uh, NetDocs on a Windows computer, they might have some issues on a Mac. We do have a pre-recorded training that you should be getting emails for that go over all that. So that's something to take into consideration. All right, didn't really get a lot of questions, which is fine. If you think of anything afterwards, feel free to let me know. Like I said, let me just come back over here to our webpage. We're going to come over and I will start adding signups here. And NetDocs office hours, this is for anyone at your office to jump on and ask me questions about how to use NetDocs. That's the whole purpose there. So free training from us, so feel free to take advantage of that. Otherwise, have a great day. Thank you so much.